Be on YouTube. All right. I've had a few critics from I've had a few critics from my mind on YouTube.
We cannot do that. I'm happy to not.
Well,
Here's a pen. You want a pencil or a pen?
write down. I just want to remember these things I was going to talk about.
Okay.
There's Paul, because I know
So,
everybody here is in the idea of forgetting. Got it. Forgetting things that are unimportant and remembering things that are important, but there's only one thing important, which is remembering your true self.
okay.
But in that, there are hoops and dales, or hills and dales, whatever the saying is. Is that the right saying, hills and dales?
Never heard that. Oh, I saw you write that and I had no idea what that meant. Thought there was a
I
typo.
think it's hills and dales. Kevin knows. He's just being silent and mysterious there.
What would you like me to write down?
We're going to do Bernadette straight away.
Okay.
She'll probably take us all out with her when she goes.
Okay.
I forget
So
what it was.
Bernadette, we'll write Bernadette. All right.
Bernadette. All right, Bernadette, tell me what's going on. Spit it out, because this is a really cool thing. What's happening for you? It's a really cool thing, but you need to go through it properly. Otherwise, it's gonna. Oh, hang on, I've lost everything. Otherwise, it's going to destroy you, like literally. Which won't be the first time. Many incarnations and all of that sort of thing. We got a Fran somewhere. There she is. And Vinka trying to connect. She's probably out in the middle of nowhere as usual. With the roosters. All right, Vinka, go for it. Bernadette, go for it.
So I think when was that I messaged you, Tina? Was it 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago? No, actually, let's start from the beginning. Months ago, I started experiencing very painful back pain, but I have had surgery on my back, so I was not surprised. I just thought, my back again. And but this was somewhat different because my whole body was painful and I was experiencing sharp pain everywhere. Like, I don't know if any of you ever had like magnesium deficiencies, like your legs are cramping really badly. It's just cramping, really big pain. Um, and I got magnesium because I thought, I'm deficient in magnesium, but it's kept still happening and it was really painful. And at the same time, my back was really painful and I can't take pain. So I'm good at taking pain. So I just chucked it up. It's just pain because of whatever, all my surgeries. I have had two surgeries on my back. So I was like, whatever. I don't really have a lot of sensations on my lower part because all my, I had a spinal, it's a fusion. So they froze my vertebrae together twice. But and because of this, all these and I had hysterectomy, so I had lots of surgeries down there, and I haven't had proper feelings down far as orgasms or anything like that. It's been very frustrating for the last year or so. So I just completely gave up on it, and I was doing, really, really dived into doing the course, and I thought there's nobody. I don't really need to worry about anything like that. And so it started ramping up. Months kept going on, the really bad pain in my body all over and laying down. And I just felt I was going to burst out of my whole body. And 3 weeks ago, I started experiencing really like what you talked about, this whoosh feeling up here, like somebody is sucking me through like a straw. And I was like, oh, this is what brother was talking about. I was like, okay, whatever. And then I messaged Tina, and she was right. It's like, it cannot be anything but the activity of God. And I just kept praying. I said, I don't know what is this, but it's really bad when I'm driving, when I'm laying down, especially in the evening at night. It's really painful. And at the same time, I started experiencing really bad pain in a lower, like in the tailbone around there, somewhere there, really, really, really painful. And at evening, especially, I would lay down and I had that pulling up feeling through the top of my head too. And I have this meditation app, and I noticed when I was laying down, it was actually worse. Like I was just, I don't know what was happening. And I just pulled up. I pulled up and I squeezed my anal glands and my vagina in the same time as I did this. It was like everything it just whooshed up, and it was an orgasm, but it wasn't a normal orgasm. It was in my, I can't explain this. I thought I like just, I don't know what was going, I can't explain it. It was just like I came in my mind or something like that. That's the closest to I can explain it. And I was like, what the hell is this? And I wasn't even thinking about this Kundalini at all. But I remember you mentioned it one time. And I just had lots of anger down here. And I don't know if it started releasing from just lots of crying and just praying and crying. And I felt lots of love coming up, and it would be just like towards anything. I would just cry, and I thought, okay, all the lessons are working. I don't know. I thought I'm getting closer to God and I'm connecting closer. That's all I could think of. And and at the same time right now too, I have a lot of fear regarding specialness, because I don't want this specialness. I don't want this specialness. I never did in my entire life. Even if I ever had to go up there and perform, I didn't want to be special. I don't want attention. I don't want this. I just want to love, and I want to be loved. And I don't even want these I don't even want these orgasms, to be honest. I just want to feel the love of God. That's all.
Okay.
That's all.
You have the pencil. Write specialness on the paper. So because you asked me about what I think's going on, is this Kundalini, is this, that, and the other, whatever it might be, you sort of answered yourself in that thing when you said Tina reminded you that there is only the activity of God happening. Right? It's only ego mind that's going to tell you or make you think you should be fearful that something else could be happening. However, there's a very real reason why Jesus went to John for baptism at the time simultaneously that the Spirit came upon him, was part and parcel to offer witness that he was the chosen one, right? And also to symbolize the nature of his connection with the divine through the symbolic reference of the dove coming down and landing upon him. Okay, now that connection with the divine is what you are fostering through doing the workbook lessons, through doing meditation, through doing everything you're doing. But it has to be a conscious connection with the divine, not some days this, some days that. Right? The idea of Kundalini awakening comes from the Eastern traditions. And whilst you could argue certain points about it being very similar to transformation, as in through the course, through what most people will tell you they go through and all these sorts of things, there are profound differences. Okay, the primary difference between the Kundalini awakening, or what they call the Kundalini awakening, and spiritual awakening as taught through the course, is that through the course, awakening is the rekindling of a memory. That's it. The rekindling of a memory that is within your own mind somewhere, and all your efforts to rekindle it are done through those workbook lessons, prayer and meditation and everything. It has nothing to do with the body. The body is simply an adjunct, if you like. You cannot not include the body in, because you're doing this through the body. It's a physical transformation as well, right? That physical transformation takes place according to and on par with the transformation of your mind. As the mind heals, the body follows, right? When I was going through cancer at the age of 30-something, when I first started going through it and it was intolerable, I didn't have the Course in Miracles. The Course in Miracles came along somewhere in that transition from having cancer to being cancer-free, right? It was a couple of years since finding the Course to when finally I had my miracle with it and the cancer was lifted from me like instantaneously in a single instant. Because it took that couple of years for certain changes to occur in my mind to be able to incorporate what was required for that healing to take place. I had to reach a certain level or a certain authenticity or a certain, I don't even know what you would call it, a certain vibratory association with the idea of the healing that was going to be required for that to change in me. Okay. Now, the difference between that and Kundalini awakening is that it's an attempt to activate certain centers within the body, right, through the Kundalini process of awakening the glands, the chakras and things like that, in order to bring about some kind of transcendental escape from the body. All right, it's more akin to Buddhism, right? It's transcendence rather than transformation. And if you really nitpick, like if you really get down with the Course, and then you go and read like Ramana Maharshi or Aurobindo or any of those sort of guys, you'll realize that the idea of doing the work, right, isn't really a strong point in their teachings. It's more about being here now, being here now. Who am I? Who is the observer? Who is the thinker? Where is the mind? All this sort of stuff, right? Which negates the cellular accumulation of denial that the body represents and which is stored in the body, which is why when you feel angry, you feel it in your guts and all this sort of stuff. When you feel fear, you feel it in your guts and all this sort of stuff, right? The Course transforms the mind in order to be able to deal with that and release it through the grace of God. And Kundalini awakening is really kind of rough. It just sort of opens the lid and tries to squeeze it all out without any transformation. It's like sex without lube. It's rough and it's raw and it's ancient, right? And it goes back, like if you look to the Vedas and the Gitas and all of these sorts of things and the Upanishads in general, you can go back 6, 10, 12,000 years of historic referencing of people who have experienced all sorts of stuff through spontaneous and radical awakenings. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples. So one that I know, I didn't know this person, I knew of her. She practiced some, I don't know what it was, but she's practiced some form. When I was in Byron Bay years ago, I was under the belief that A Course in Miracles was the only spiritual text, the only spiritual volume that was getting around that had a workbook, right? And I was wrong. There was another book getting around at that time. It wasn't a hardcover, paper cover. It was a book that was copied and disseminated by devotees, right? Which was the teachings of some spiritual avatar from India, whatever. And there was a workbook with it. And I was given this book for a while by one of the devotees to see what I thought of it. And I started reading the workbook lessons in there. There was about 12 lessons. Basically, they were geared at applying the principles of transcendence and all that sort of stuff. And I gave it back and I thought, yeah, well, this is You know, like in light of the Course in Miracles, where you got 365 lessons that firstly undo the error and then reinforce the truth and bring you to a point of vision. It was really nothing. It was kind of like this rough shod. It would be no different than if you went to India, let's say, and sat with a sadhu and they wrote down a bunch of stuff for you to practice. It would get you started. Right? But this girl that I'm talking about, not the one who gave me the workbook, but the one that I'm talking about, also was a devotee of whoever this was. And in Byron Bay, it's much like Mount Shasta, I think, by the sounds of it in America. There's every man and his dog's got some sort of spiritual guru they follow and some kind of thing going on. And like, man, you can't walk down the street without a namaste or a be here now or a, you know, whatever. So this girl started having experiences through the practice of this meditation. And like you said, you felt like an intense burning inside. She started feeling an intense burning inside. It got to the stage where she couldn't control the burning, and it actually started to burn her, like literally burn her, to degenerate her cells inside and start to cause her to feel this constant friction within, like as if she was on fire. And she got to the point, I think it was about 3 months, got to the point where she couldn't take it anymore, and she went up to the bluffs and threw herself off, right? Threw herself into the ocean and destroyed her body. The nature of mind that is seeking, your mind, my mind before the Course, I'm going to put it that way, right? The nature, and I'm going to give it to you this way because I know you bounce in and out of this, right? I've told you many times you're very close to revelation, but you just keep bouncing off it, right? So the nature of mind that is seeking is that it has this kind of tendency to want to just latch onto anything that sounds credible, right? This sounds like something I'm familiar with. Let me have a look at it. That sounds like something I'm familiar with. Let me have a look at it. What is this? Blah, blah, blah. And it'll literally flail at everything. It's like somebody free falling through this kind of ambition of achieving something, not really knowing what they're trying to achieve, but at the same time grasping at anything that sounds right or looks right or chants the right songs or wears the right clothes or seems to present the right sort of image or anything, right? It's maniacal in its flailing. Like it's just literally, it goes mental. I went through a big period of that prior to finding the Course for about 10 years. I went everywhere. I went into every church. Every time I would pass something that looked like a church or a mosque or a temple, I'd go in and see what was going on, right? I'd talk to people. Where I lived in northern New South Wales, there was Moonies there. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Moonies, the orange people. There was Moonies. There was Osho sannyasins living in the hills. There was Baptists. There was, you name it. Everybody was around me, and I was constantly having these very in-depth conversations about all sorts of stuff, especially at the co-op, where all the earthy sort of spiritual people would meet every second Thursday to bring all their grocery product and sell. And Shannon could bring her eggs. But I was desperate for information. I was desperate to be filled up. I wanted that fulfillment. I didn't know I wanted that fulfillment. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was just driven by this kind of passion, by this kind of maniacal sense of discovery that I was looking for something. And finally having the dark night of my soul when I couldn't find it. I just couldn't go on anymore. It was just like I saw that there was, everywhere I went, there was nothing, right? Failing to realize that what I was looking for was actually within me the whole time. So in that sense of searching and grasping at everything, which I know you've done plenty of it, right? That builds up in your cellular association as well. Okay? Cause and effect are not separate. Every time you empower any of your thinking any of your thoughts, give it a meaning and put value in it, it becomes yours. You make it part of your association. You make it part of your identity, right? When you finally come into alignment with a true teaching and true spiritual teaching, one that actually has, like, it'll pull the rug out from under your feet as if you have to start from scratch all over again, like the Course, right? You'll come to it with all this stuff you've learned, and then all of a sudden, it'll pull the rug out from under your feet, and you'll be like, holy shit, I learned all this stuff years ago. Do I really need to go through all this again? Blah, 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 blah. And you'll try to give yourself some sort of credit. That credit that you try to give yourself is, one, only to maintain the identity based on what it is you think you've learnt so far, and two, to actually resist the love of God, right? Which is really the primary one. I mean, they both work together, but denial of God is the founding playbook of the human experience. Right? It's not like I'm lost, where's God? It's like, oh, I'm in denial. I'm the one hiding. I'm the one playing hide and seek with God, and I've forgotten where I'm hiding. That's more to the point. So when you come to a true spiritual teaching and you've got all this baggage, and I'm going to call it baggage. A lot of people get offended when I call their past spiritual learnings baggage, but it's just a baggage. It's a load of rubbish that you don't need, right? If you were to, let's say, put it in a physical form, if you were wandering around the Holy Land 2,000 years ago, you would find many people spruiking the benefits of following their particular teachings on God, and you'd have the Jews in the synagogues, and you'd have people standing on street corners or whatever, and then you'd have the Messiah, right? Then you would have Jesus come, the prophesied one. And you'd have a choice. Do I continue to participate with all these other things that have been on offer so far, or do I just go with the Messiah? To go with the Messiah, who doesn't stand on a corner, he just keeps fucking walking. You got to follow him. If you want to know what he's going to say, you got to, like, leave your shit and go, right? You have to make that choice. But once you follow him, you can't go back. Once you start following Jesus, you can't go back to all those other things that finally got you to him in the first place. And to try and continue to reassociate with those things is pointless. There's going to come plenty of times with the Course in Miracles, with your own spiritual transformation, where you don't understand what's going on. There's going to come plenty of times when you don't understand what Jesus is saying. But you have to just keep following him, right? Because one, it makes no sense to go back. Two, you can't go back. And attempting to use your past learnings as a reference to guide you through what you don't understand through following Jesus is going to result in so much friction within you, because it's not the same vibration, that it's literally going to burn you up. Right? Literally, you have to let go of the past. The idea of Kundalini awakening, fuck it off. Forget about it. It's an associated field of reference, sure. But is it walking with Jesus? No. Awakening is simply the recognition of where you are and what you are forever and always, and in all ways. All right? So the prayer of the heart has to be for the release from the past, and allow that through the Holy Spirit to be done for you, with you getting out of the way and allowing it to happen. Because if you continue to meddle in the past, if you continue to try and reference the past to decide what it is you think is going on for you now, you're not allowing for the miracle. And it's the miracle that you can depend on. It's the miracle that you need. It's the miracle that is going to get you the hell out of this conundrum you find yourself in, and give you that true reference point in your own thinking that you actually need to finish your transformation. I meet a lot of people, well, not so much. Last few years, I've been fairly, what would you call it when you just live alone and don't mingle? Ascetic or something or whatever. But I used to meet a lot of people that would come to the course because the course is fairly new in the world. It's only 50 years odd, right? But they would come to it from other things, other disciplines, other traditions. And I used to try to explain how it's different until finally I gave up. I said, you just have to do it for yourself. That would be my final thing. Mostly because these people weren't devoted students of mine, weren't devoted to any particular thing. They were just seeking. And the thing that I know about that is that the seeker seeks because they don't want to find. The seeker seeks because it's a prelude to collapse. It's a prelude to finally realizing that you've been on every spiritual merry-go-round. You've done every kind of satsang, including this one, and have discovered nothing. And you might have phenomena, you might have experiences along the way, but if you're still attending satsangs, meetings, meditations, and everything else, you haven't got there yet. Because the liberation that salvation offers is liberation from concepts, including your spiritual concepts. Right? This Zoom meeting could be seen as a kind of a masterclass. It's like this is the meeting to end all meetings in a certain sense. If you're in this field of hearing, if you're actually listening, if you're actually tuning into what's being said, you're being prepared to face a jump-off point in your own conscious association with yourself where you're becoming willing to let go of all dependence externally and simply undertake the journey with the Holy Spirit within yourself. All of the phenomena, all of the experiences through the body, everything else that seems to be going on, maybe it witnesses, and this is where it's an individual awakening, maybe it witnesses to you about something that's particular to your process, to your transformation right here and now, as my things have witnessed, my experiences have witnessed to pertinent pertinent junctions of learning in my own transformation. Every time there's a shift and a change, there's usually an experience that accompanies that shift or that change in consciousness that makes sense of the shift. Otherwise, there'd be no point in giving you a shift in consciousness if you weren't able to use it. It'd just end up sending you deeper into insanity. And I've met people that have had shifts in consciousness without any ability to reference what the shift was for. I think I've told you guys about my friend in Brisbane who was teaching himself this kind of yogic meditation. And he had an experience of being outside of his body for a second and seeing the whole world, the whole universe as a lake of gold. And he saw himself sitting beside this lake and everything was just simply shimmering gold. Not golden light, gold as in liquid gold. And when he came out of that experience, which he forced himself into that experience through an extreme act of meditation. But when he came out of that experience, it fried his circuits so bad that when the time came that I actually met him, his wife contacted me. When I actually met him, he'd been like nearly 6 months or something without sleep, like not one night of sleep. And when I met him, his eyes were red raw, right the way down to the bottom of his cheeks, and his eyeballs were bright red. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't work. His kids were worried. He'd done something in his mind. He'd severed some circuits or flipped some switches that he didn't know what he did. He didn't know how to heal it, fix it, whatever. And I didn't certainly know how to heal it, fix it, or whatever. I mean, the mind is a tricky terrain. You've got to trust the Holy Spirit with that completely, right? Which is why you're learning to become completely dependent on God through the Spirit. But anyway, happy story. I gave him a copy of A Course in Miracles, and a few months later, I just rang his wife to see how things was going, and he'd had his first night of sleep just that, like recently, that week or something. But dabbling, the idea of dabbling in other, or just dabbling in a sense without any kind of guidance, Now, I had many good guided moments before finding A Course in Miracles, before it was given to me. Many good guided moments. Right? I remember when I was working at Long Island as a much younger man in my very early 20s, and I'd already been with the Brahma Kumari learning open-eyed meditation, and I'd been done a few other things like that, been to the Insight seminars and stuff like that. And then I went to work as a gardener on this island resort. And island resorts here, I guess, like around the world, are proliferated by staff who are very young, like to drink and party a lot, and very noisy. And I was no different. But I had this background of interest in meditation and in something that meditation embodied, which hadn't really dropped in for me yet, what it was all about. But I knew I was interested in it. And I made a decision on my next day off to go and find a place to meditate up in the forest. The island was in a national park island, and the resort was a small lease within that island. And so on the day in question, I set off with my little bag with some incense to burn for an offering, and some grapes to leave as an offering, and a copy of the Good News Bible, which my friend Richard had given me, which at that time was my only spiritual text I'd had. And about 100 yards out of sight of the resort, I heard a voice, right? Oh, about 100 yards out of sight of the resort, as I'm walking up this national park's walking track, I started to feel this vibration through my whole body, an intense vibration. I didn't know what it was. I'd never felt it before. It was like every cell in my body was tingling. I started to panic a little bit, I guess, thinking maybe I was having some kind of medical moment, something going on here. And I heard a voice, and it said, "Don't be afraid." And it was kind of like a female voice, but I couldn't say that it was a female voice. It was just a voice. And it was in my mind, a voice. It wasn't my internal monologue from ego thinking. And automatically the fear just dropped away from me. I felt two hands lift me up by my underarm pits. Like literally I felt two hands, as if somebody put their hands under your armpits. And I was carried about probably almost a kilometer at fast speed, like a walking speed, up the track, past the banyan tree, which was the thing to go and see on that track, this very, very old tree, past the tree, through the bush where the track ended, and kept going up to this hilltop. And the tingling stopped. I was left to my own devices. The hands under my arms went away. And I was overcome with this incredible zeal, this incredible feeling that I had to make a stone circle. And so I set about gathering stones from the bush around me. And I didn't count them, but I knew there would be 21 stones. And when I finished making the circle, I counted them, and there was 21. And I set the 21 stones. They were quite big stones, like hard to lift, but I put them around a central stone, which I couldn't lift. And I knew that that was my meditation place. And I sat there in prayer and meditation for a good couple of hours, 2 or 3 hours, I suppose, that day. Nothing happened other than that, But that was my first real sense of true guidance, where I was told not to be afraid, and I was carried or lifted. I don't know how to describe that, because my feet were still on the ground as far as I know, but I was walking faster than I could possibly walk, and it felt like I was being carried, like I was being lifted. And there are many other, some subtle, some as obvious as that, but many other moments of having direct and clear transmission, direct and clear guidance before discovering A Course in Miracles. Right? When I experienced the illumination of my mind in 1997, and then I was given A Course in Miracles that day, like literally within an hour after my enlightenment, my teacher Greta, who I'd never met before in my life, I'd never been, you guys know the story, I think, but I'd never been in that place. I didn't even know it existed. My teacher Greta handed me the book and she said, "You just had an experience that I've seen people trying 20 years to have." She said, "You must be very powerful." And I didn't know what she meant by that at all. But I knew that I'd been in the presence of God. I knew that I'd been back in eternity, out of my body and everything else. And I didn't want to be back here in the world. It was the last place I wanted to be. But I remembered the agreement that I made with Jesus to be helpful and to help him with the course and whatever. So when Greta gave me a copy of A Course in Miracles and I opened it and I started reading, even like later that day, I started reading even the first few pages, it was as if I wrote it. I knew every word. My mind was functioning because of that light experience that I'd had that day. My mind was functioning at a rapidity of thought that was beyond humanly possible. To say that I had temporarily the gift of a savant or something like that given to me would be an understatement. It was way more than that. I could string all my thoughts for like half an hour together or a minute together or something and hold them for about half an hour. Hold those thoughts and just examine them all without the next one's interfering or my mind being wandering off or anything like that. Every page I opened in A Course in Miracles, it was like something that you would give a primary school student for me. It was like toddler's information. It was like, who the hell needs this? This is like something for beginners. It was like I knew it off by heart. Like it was as if it was an old book that I'd read long ago and mastered long ago. And I knew every word that it said. And yet there was a recognition within me that I still had to do the course. Right? When I went to see Ted about it at some point, it wasn't around then, it would have been sometime later. And we were just discussing, we were just talking just candidly about the course and all sorts of stuff. And he goes, "Well, of course it seems overly familiar to you because you wrote it." Right? It's the Christ mind that wrote the course. It's the Christ mind that channeled the course to Helen so that the dumbass human mind of Dave can look at it and have that moment of recognition and go, "Aha, this seems familiar to me." Right? It's a Christ-minded course. When you are in your Christ mind, when you are looking at the world from a Christ-minded perspective, everything is familiar to you because everything is what you are. Literally, you are one with all things, including the written word, the words on the page, the activity of applying the words, applying the teachings, the whole thing. You're not separate from anything. There's not you and somebody else. There's not me and something else or someone else on a Zoom meeting. There's just a Christ mind extending the certainty of its association with the world through the knowledge of its relationship with God to the other facets that seem to be for a moment caught up in slow time, to bring the teaching learning relationship to an equilibrium where the teacher is no longer needed. That's all that is happening. In truth, nothing is happening at all. We're just dreaming. It's just an idea of separation and then not separation. But you can't escape the situation you find yourself in by trying to two-step the work, by trying to transcend the whole process of the purification and the reassociation of your cellular level, the cellular association that you've taken responsibility for by trying to get out of it with some sort of Kundalini experience and think that that's going to be the end of the matter. It's not. All of that stuff has to be offered to the Holy Spirit. And Bernadette, I mean, you do with it whatever you want. I mean, this is your journey, your thing. If it were me, I would find myself on a mountaintop by myself, or on a far beach by myself where I could be certain there was no one else around. And I would draw my circle and I would stay there in prayer for the healing of my mind, to purge all of that crap out of your system. And I've been on a mountaintop and I've been to a far beach, and I know exactly how much it takes. It takes everything. That's why Jesus went into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights, no food, no water. He was either going to purge himself of the temptations, his own temptations, or he was going to die in the attempt to do it. But he already had this kind of understanding. He was the chosen one. So I'm guessing he had the notion that he wasn't going to die. Inside information. It's helpful. I can guarantee you won't die as well. It's impossible. You may undergo a hell of a lot of anxiety, a hell of a lot of what would you call it? Maybe testing of your spirit. And I don't want to call it testing, because that sounds as if there's a win-lose kind of thing. It's not really. I don't really know the word for what I'm trying to say here, but whatever you do, draw your circle and don't step out of it. Right? Stay in the circle no matter how bad it gets, because the circle is a circle of faith. And you stay in the faith. That's it. That faith is all you've got. Oh, we've got a Samsung, somebody. Hey, Angela. Oh, there's Barry. Have you guys been to London?
Not yet.
Oh, come on. Don't let it slip. Don't let this moment pass you by. Barry's got another assignment: to return his ring, put it on the counter without a word said, and walk out.
It'll happen.
It will happen. Angela's going to make sure it happens. She's going to accompany you. So just sit with all of that, Bernadette. Try not to pucker your anus and your vagina too much in the meantime. Try to let go of it. It might be amusing to your ego, but I mean, who the hell knows? But definitely sit in prayer, sit in meditation, and draw your circle with it, and allow for that purging to occur. Allow for that healing to occur. Right? My healing, which is really the only true reference for healing that I have, occurred. It's both an ongoing process, where on a daily basis there is the surrender to God, and in that surrender, whatever the healing of the evil of the day, which is always sufficient, is. And then there are these kind of ring pass knots. Ted used to call them ring pass knots, where you'll reach a certain thing and you'll realize this is bigger than you to be able to get past it, right? It may be an existential conundrum, right? You'll reach a certain kind of impasse with things. You may be in a relationship that's no longer serving and you don't have the courage to get out of it, and you know that. You may be in a workplace environment that's sort of past its use by date, and you're afraid to leave because you don't have another job to go to, and all of this stuff. All of this is always going to be a leap of faith. All of these things. I mean, change is always going to be based on faith. If it's change on your own terms, then all you're doing is swapping one particular manifestation for another manifestation that you think you prefer better. And you're going to end up repeating the same cycle in a different form, right? So change has to occur miraculously. It can't be on your own terms. I don't know, because the whole point of A Course in Miracles is learning to become dependent on God. Hey, there's Brother Dean. The whole point of A Course in Miracles is learning to become completely dependent on God, not dependent on your own thinking, not dependent on your historic references, your stories, your ideas about what you think A Course in Miracles is. Because in this moment, truly, if I'm truly practicing the principle of A Course in Miracles, I have no freaking clue what it is. What is this book? What does it mean? What is it even saying? This is the first time I've ever seen it. If I truly am only existing in the present moment, then all of my memories of the past mean nothing, including my spiritual ones. Now, that's a big step, because you'll say to me, well, I'm on lesson 60 or 110, whatever. Does that mean I just let go of all these other lessons and just focus on that lesson? And yes, that's what it does mean. But also look at that idea in your own mind of wanting to know what it means. What does that mean? What does this mean? What does that mean? Right? When Jesus says stuff in the Course, what does that mean? Right? If you don't know what he means by it, don't worry about it. It's probably still above your pay grade. You haven't reached that level of integration with your own spiritual maturity in order that you just go, oh yeah, yep, got that, Jesus, good, next. And in my own deal, right, when I first started sitting with Ted, I sat with Ted for 6 years, every day for 6 years, about probably 5 or 6 hours a day. And he would just talk. He'd be like, blah, 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 and there'd be like 100 to 150 people in the room some days. He wouldn't know who was there. He wouldn't know anyone was there. He'd just simply open his mouth and the words would start coming out, and he'd just start channeling and talking. And like, man, it was like liquid mercury. Like, it was just so smooth and so just unbroken in the flow of the transmission. And everybody in the room got exactly what they needed. There was always a period at the end where you could ask questions, but like any satsang, but no one ever had a question to ask particularly, except maybe one or two new guys would come in and they'd want to, like, what the hell's going on here? But there was a point where when I was sitting with him, every day it was like nutrition. Every day it was like food for the soul. I wanted it. I wanted to be there the next day. When he stopped teaching, I really wanted to go back to his cabin and sit there and pick his brains and talk to him about stuff, that was more personal to me. But I knew that he'd been teaching for 5 or 6 hours straight, and he needed to chill. And he would go and defrag down, like when you defrag a computer, it's been running for a long time and you got to just like, he would go and defrag, and he was useless to anyone for hours after he would finish teaching. He couldn't do anything. He couldn't talk. He emptied his cup completely. And then towards the end of that 6 years, I would be sitting there for the whole day with him and realizing that I was listening to the same stuff that I'd always heard, that I already knew. Everything was so familiar. And I would sit there for that whole time just waiting for maybe there was 1 or 2 words of something that would click in still, right? But all of his teachings were completely familiar, in line with the Course. I'd gone through a particular rite of passage, let's say, which was shown to me in a vision, a rite of passage wherein my inconsistencies, my personal inconsistencies with the Course material had been brought into a sufficient enough alignment with it that I could make use of it, even though I was still kind of like not certain about how I was applying things. And I would apply it 10 times and get it right once, maybe. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes you just go to pray and you get up and you realize that wasn't a very good prayer. I didn't really mean that, because you feel like it was superficial or not really at the deepest place you've ever come from. Things like that. But there was always this, what would you call it? There was always this kind of knowing that eventually my time with the Course would come to an end. right? And as Jesus says, and now forget this course, right? There's going to come a point, it's like when you study to be a doctor, a general practitioner or something, and you go to college for 7 years and you read all the books, and eventually when you graduate, that graduation means you don't need the books. You may perhaps keep them as a reference for things in the future, but generally you don't need them. Generally, you're a generally practitioner. You've got the gist of it. Your graduation at the behest of a group of your peers means that they trust you. Here's your certificate. We think you can go out there and do general practicing on people without killing anybody. Right? So it's like that. Jesus isn't asking you in the course to become perfect. He's not saying be like me. He's saying set the direction towards being like me and make the effort to move forward regarding that. Make the effort to become more miracle-minded. Use time for its intended purpose according to the purpose salvation ascribes to it, and learn to continually release the past, release the present, and begin to operate even in the physical sense from a place of being present, being here and now. The true requiem of being here and now has nothing to do with the physical situation you find yourself in. It becomes purely an internal activity. Here and now becomes purely an internal activity wherein in your own thinking, because the external world is simply a representation of your own thinking, in your own thinking, the here and now transfers to internal listening, internal silence, internal waiting, internal feeling. Where in a meditative state, you kind of listen in or lean in or push in towards deeper and deeper silence, deeper and deeper refusal to listen to your own ego voice, but deeper and deeper. It's really hard to talk about the internal process because you have to kind of like discover it, but a deeper and deeper sense of detachment from the world and your body and the temporal mind, and the entering into what you might call the abyss or the void or the nothingness of simply listening. And I don't really know how to talk about that, but Bernadette, when you said it felt like that whoosh being sucked out of the top of your head, that's fine. That's a true thing. But that occurs internally in here. It has nothing to do with the top of your head. We talk about it as the top of your head because the body is a symbol for the mind in denial. The body is the ego's symbol. And whatever you experience in here in the mind, which is where I'm directing you to look, is always going to be represented through the symbol, through the body. Right? So that internal, that whoosh, when you enter into a deep meditative state of listening, a deep meditative state of like that, abidance, you should feel, or you should begin to feel, a sense of being sucked out of yourself, a sense of being sucked down the plug hole. And if you remember those childhood memories, your mother would pull the plug out and you'd have to get out of the tub before the water all went down, because otherwise you might get sucked down there too, right? And it was kind of like a real terror. It's like, holy shit, I got to get out of the bathtub. And it's like, you don't want to get out because you got all your toys in the tub and everything, but the plug's gone. It's like, you got to get out, and your mum's telling you, you'll get sucked down the plug hole, and you can see everything going down the plug hole. So it forms this kind of like unfounded fear, and you got to get out, right? Now that's what happens in meditation, right? When you enter into a place in your mind where you're on the precipice or on the cusp, or and I just wrote a post about this, on the threshold of consciousness, where consciousness meets the veil, and you push through the veil. Jesus talks about it. I think it's lesson 16 of imagine a bank of clouds and trying to reach through the clouds or push through the clouds, right? It seems like that. It seems like a mist or an invisible kind of wall, and you're up against the limit of your own consciousness. It's like someone's holding a sheet and you're trying to push against it mentally. When you reach that place and you start pushing, it's analogous to the idea of knock and the door shall be opened, right? Ask and you shall receive. That's the place where you wait. That's the place where you knock and you ask. It's like, I want to go beyond this. I want an experience. And if you're ready, you'll be given it, right? You have to become revelation ready. Bernadette, you're ready. I guarantee you're ready. You're the only one that isn't aware that you're ready yet, because you're still clinging to things that aren't helpful. When you're ready for a revelation, it will be given to you. It won't be given to you before you're ready for it, because you'll just waste it. Your ego will corrupt the full benefit of it, and you'll end up just walking around going, oh, I had an experience of something. Oh, blah, 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 blah. And it'll become part of your identity, right? You won't be able to fully ground it and integrate it and make it useful in the continuing idea of healing on a cellular level, as well as the being useful as a teacher, right? And you have to take that on board. You've got to want to teach. Fulfilling your part in the atonement is accepting atonement for yourself. Jesus, being the head of the atonement, is calling you to be a teacher. Literally calling you to be a teacher of God. If you want this healing just for yourself and you're not willing to offer it to others, or to even make the effort to offer it to others, you're never going to have a revelation. Because giving and receiving is the same thing. And you cannot receive if you're unwilling to give. Right? It's like energy. If I just keep filling up my thing, but I'm not giving any away, then I can't be filled up anymore, because the cup's always full. Right? I have to be willing to give it away. I have to be willing to extend the light in the heart of my mind, heart and mind, out there to the seeming universe, to the seeming brotherhood, to the seeming whatever it is that seems to be presenting itself, asking me for my input and that sort of thing, in order to be able to empty your cup. Right? The cup has to be emptied. You got to give to receive. It is in giving, St. Francis. It is in giving that we receive. Right? Give, 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 and ask nothing in return. Have no expectation of return. Don't even, like, God is your source. God is your supply. God will fill you up according to your need, according to your willingness to simply be about his business on earth. And Jesus is in charge of that. Jesus is the head of the atonement. When I met the guys who were in charge of the atonement, my personal atonement, I was flabbergasted. I was completely, it wasn't what I was expecting at all. I didn't identify any particular one of them as Jesus or anyone, but I was told, this is where your teacher Ted sits. There was a circle of what I can only call elders, a circle of divine beings around me, and I was sort of standing there looking up, but I had no body. I was just this consciousness. I was just aware of everything. And I knew in my mind, all of these celestial beings that are around me are orchestrating the particulars of my own transformation. They're overlooking everything. And that experience was according to my, I wanted to know who they were. I invited the experience and I received the experience according to the invitation, which was from the heart. It was kind of crazy how I invited them, but at that time in my transformation, I knew I had nothing to lose. I didn't give a fuck what people thought of me. I used to do wild and radical things. I'd make bold experiments with my spirituality and my acts of faith and put myself out. I gave away my house. I gave away my job and my car and my dog. I gave away everything to pursue my spiritual, I had no safety net. I had no back door. I had no, just in case this doesn't work out, I'll just rent my house out in the meantime. It's like, nah, gone. Everything gone. There was part of me that wanted to keep the house. It was a nice house. But it was all or nothing. And it still is all or nothing. It's like this house that I find myself in now, going through this divorce proceedings and this whole thing. And we have this sort of agreement to sell the house and to split the profit and all this sort of stuff. And I just said to her, you can have everything. I don't want to you can even have the shirt on my back. I don't care. I'm just done with it. And now she doesn't want that. But I made the offering, right? I made the offering. It was a total offering and it was from the heart. And I know that it was a true offering. There was no regret in making that offering. There was no coercion, no nothing. It came strictly from a biblical place of my brother is asking, I want to give them everything. I'm not going to hold back. And the offer was rejected. But anyway, so here we are. Does that answer your question, Bernadette? Does that put you into a better place of mind where?
Yes.
I don't want to deny you an incredible celestial orgasm or anything like that. I mean, I know it's been a tough year for you, but I haven't had one for about 3 years. I don't even really know what the whole thing of that is anymore, but probably a bit longer than maybe nearly 4 years, but who's counting? What's a year between friends? All right. Any other questions? I had a
Tammy has her hand up, Dave. She's had her hand up.
Where's Tammy?
Tammy.
Where is
Hey,
she?
so I guess my
Oh,
question,
Tammy.
yeah, hey,
Oh, you got a little hand.
a little hand.
You keep moving around the screen. There we go. Yep.
So my question is what I find myself when I'm focused, not focused, when I call on spirit and I'm just present, the third eye, I feel a lot of stuff happening in here, but I
Good.
don't want it to be about the body. So I'm getting confused on what, anyway, I don't know.
All right. Close your eyes.
Yeah.
Close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths. Invite the spirit in and focus your consciousness on that third eye area. Just slowly breathing in through your nose and out through that area. Imagine yourself breathing out there. You feel a kind of a tingling. You should get a kind of a sense of energy and stuff.
It's that way all the time. Like I feel it.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
Like I feel it all the time because I'm more present. And so I feel it all the time. And then I know my friend she has a crystal shop and she's saying, be careful, it'll be over. You don't want it to overactivate. And I'm like, so I don't know. Yeah, it's happened now.
That's okay. It can't overactivate. It can't. It's impossible.
So it's
close your eyes again. I want to try something else.
Okay.
Close your eyes. Connect with it. Connect with the feeling if you're feeling it now, right? And consciously imagine it moving from your third eye up to the top of your head. Can you feel it in the top of your head?
Not right now because I'm trying, but I have felt some on the top of the head.
All right. It will eventually move there and sort of focus to there.
Okay. Because sometimes I feel a little bit on the crown, but I don't want to make too much of a body or sensation. So
don't make anything out of it. That's a very common thing with the course. Like the body undergoes a lot of stuff, right? And you will feel stuff. You will feel all sorts of let's call it symptoms for a second, symptoms of healing through the body. They're always manageable. Sometimes they'll take you right to the limit of manageability. They'll be quite intense at some times. But they fall into an alignment with the course as part and parcel of the phenomena or the witnessing that's associated with the mind, the change in your thinking, right? The mind training. It's slightly similar to what Bernadette's going through, because Bernadette's is forced. It's really like full on, uncontrollable. All sorts of stuff goes on with that. And I remember Annie telling me the story too of her thing with the bands of iron. She wanted to kill herself. She felt she was being constricted by energy bands around her torso that was so tight. She was being crushed by it. She wanted to destroy it, to end her life. And she ended up going to get shock therapy, right? Which is about the third time Annie's taken herself for shock therapy. But even if you're doing a course in miracles, it's still possible to, how would I put this? So there are two. Hang on, I'll have to put the shade thing down here for a second. I'm getting fricasseed. Oh. There we go. So I want to, and I don't want it to sound like I'm hanging shit on anybody here, but there are two schools of thought, two schools of teaching with the Course in Miracles, which I'm surprised it's even sprung up this way. But I guess because the ego is divisive, it'll use any opportunity to cause division. But I remember when I was at the Healing Center years and years ago, we had a couple of ladies come. One of them had been a Catholic nun for 20 odd years, and the other one had been something. But they'd come from Ken Wapnick's college in New York or wherever it was, right? And they'd been there. Where'd she go? Oh, there you are. You're up in that corner now. You keep moving around. They'd been there for some time. They'd been there for like 4 or 5 years studying with Ken. And one of the guys from Wisconsin went to the college in New York to just curiously to see what it was about. One of the guys that had been with Master Teacher, right? And met, one of them was Philly. One of these ladies was Philly, who ended up becoming one of my teachers. She was the original tea lady of salvation. And I can't remember who the other woman was, but they ended up going back to Wisconsin, leaving Kensing and going back to Wisconsin. And when I finally met up with Philly in Australia some years later, she said to me, the difference between an active learning, an active participation in the course, and a theoretical study of the course is two entirely different things.
Yeah.
Right? And she said there was no way she would ever go back to studying the course the way that it was taught by Ken, even though literally he was very accurate with his transmission of what the course was saying. There was no light in it, no activity in there. There was no actual living message. And when she went and sat with Master Teacher and then came out and sat with Ted in Australia, she realized that the message was actually alive, that the teachings of Jesus were actually alive, and she could feel those teachings. She could feel the transmission, because the transmission was coming through awakened minds that had experienced the living message for themselves and were imparting it, right? In exactly the same way that I'm doing with you guys now, right? Same thing, which is why Tina often says to me, like, these Zoom meetings are different to every other kind of Zoom meeting I go on the on the internet, you know, and like there's a whole thing that goes on here, right? And I love our whole thing that goes on here. Today's meeting is kind of, I was thinking, because I had this interaction with somebody during the week on the internet about allowing you guys to ask questions and put your own things forward. I thought, oh, we haven't done that for a while. And then Tina mentioned to me the other day, you don't talk to me anymore about what's going on with me, wanting to be special. Exactly. And all of that. So I thought today we'll make it more about that. But usually they're more active, more alive, more passionate. But those two ways of seeing things, right? So the literal study of the course and the interactive study of the course are different. I would have to think that eventually, because the academic mind loves to study everything literally, right? But I would love to think that eventually that academic mind sort of leans more into its creative sense and begins to activate, begins to become activated. The little precursors for that are often the things that you're talking about, like you get this itchiness or whatever, and it just like you got to rub the shit out of it and it doesn't do anything. And I've walked around slapping my head sometimes trying to stop that tingling and itching, because after a while it does get annoying. But now it's not even there. Now it's kind of like I'm in control of it, and I can use it to transcend the conscious level of my mind to the point where I can just, for a second, flash out into another whole state of myself and come back. Right? And it's always joyous. It's always happy. It's always like it's like a postcard from home there. But you do have these sorts of things goes on. Some of the more common things that I've had or been made aware of over years and years of talking with course students is a sense of tingling throughout the body, like a cellular vibration, like I was talking about earlier on with my meditational story. Phenomena such as things appearing and disappearing, having profound deja vu, remembering parts of the script, seeing light around things and having light experiences, and also having connections in mind, right, with other students, with other people who are devoted to the course or devoted to awakening, who are on your frequency perhaps, or who are willing to join you in the experience of stepping up to a higher frequency in a sense of self. It's like Dean's about to undergo a whole shift where he's going to step into a new higher sense of himself. He's not quite there yet, but I can tell that it's coming. Right? It's like a train. You can hear it in the distance, and you don't know how far it is, but you can hear the chickity chick chickity chick chickity chick. So there's this kind of thing going on. For now, he's in his ministry stage. Right? He's like an apostle. He's out there just giving it away. Everything changes. Everything shifts, everything changes. You will go through many, many shifts in consciousness and many, many changes in relationship to the course, and even beyond the course, in the process of your own transformation, in your own rising up to become revelation ready. The actual experience of revelation is so far beyond talking about. You can't put it into words. It's so personal, and it's so not of this world. It's so celestial, and you can't really describe it to other people in a way wherein it has any relevance to them. Right? Which is why attempting to do so, people, like when I first had my awakening and I ran around telling everybody, I've just seen God, I've been home, I've been back in eternity. And everybody's like, what were you smoking?
Yeah.
Like they didn't want to hear it. They couldn't hear it. They didn't know what to make of it. It was like, I'm just some crazy guy, and I was that crazy guy for a period of about 3 years before I realized that I had to ground this experience, or I was just going to end up running around the streets, probably naked, just like singing and dancing and skipping, and, not very helpful to Jesus in that. So
So at night, like sometimes like it's hard for me to do my meditation / connecting toward night because I won't sleep because my head, the third eye is way too, everything's too active.
Join the
Or
club. What is sleep?
I don't know what too active is. I don't know anything. So I'm just like,
Right. Good. Stay in the I don't know anything. I don't know anything is better than I'm too active.
yeah.
Right? Just remember, everything by the grace of God, not by the grace of Tammy. Right? If you feel within that your meditation serves you better first thing in the morning, do it first thing in the morning. If you feel that it's not conducive to being peaceful and sleeping well and whatever at night, then don't do it at night. There's no shoulds or shouldn'ts or better or worse in this. It's just like a sense of things. You just sort of feel it. You just get a sense and you go with it, and you ask sometimes perhaps, what about this? What about that? Show me, Lord. Should I do this? Should I do that? Jesus says in the Course, things like time and space are under his control. So if you're finding it difficult to find time to pray or to meditate or whatever, ask him for help and he'll create some time in your day for that. But you've got to remember what the time in your day is for when it shows up. Right? He'll create the perfect time in the perfect place and everything. And if you suddenly realize, hey, my roster's clear today, I think I'll go fishing, then you're filling up the perfect clear space that he's made for you with fishing rather than what it is that it's meant to be for, which is your meditation and your prayerful practice and all that sort of thing. I mean, who's to say that meditation, that fishing isn't meditational? A lot of people say it is. I mean, you have to have a lot of patience and you have to sit there quietly waiting, and it's like it sounds very meditative. But
Yeah, the whole day, everything is dedicated to that because I don't work right now, and I
Right.
work. Yeah, that was all summer, and so everything is dedicated to it now. That's all I'm doing is connecting, and that's what. Yeah.
Everything's always perfect, Tammy. Everything's always perfect. Everything I'm telling you now is perfect. Okay. Now, go from this moment into the next one, letting go of this one in its entirety, and simply accept the perfection. And you'll have a moment of wow. Ready? See what you did there? You examined what I said. You examined, what do you mean by that? Right? That's what the mind does. It wants to know what that's going to look like, or what do I mean by let it go? How do I let go?
It was just trying to I just let it go. I actually just went
Right.
to back now and started feeling.
Right. Cool. Okay. Ready? Here we are. Here. Now stay there. Stay in that place. You'll find that when you try to stay in that place, or when you sit in that place, that other things will happen. The doorbell will ring, or somebody will come into the room, or the cat will jump on your lap, or right. These are the little exterior manifestations that the mind gets to subtly kind of try to draw you out of that place of being. And it always happens to me. There'll be a kookaburra or something goes off out there and it'll distract me. And I like to try and convince myself that I'm fairly competent now at staying present and whatever, but I'm always proven wrong. About every time I try to make a determination on earth and represent myself as something or doing something or whatever, I'm always proven wrong. So it always has to be by the grace of God. Always. Doesn't matter how long you've been meditating, how many times you've read the Course, doesn't matter any of that shit. Always by the grace of God. Here I am, Lord. This moment, here and now. Is that good with you, Bernadette? Anna? All right, I have to ask Tina now what's going on with Tina. She's got a house that's fallen down around her knees. And
Dave, I didn't say that, first of all, but that's what was heard, and I'm good.
you were knocking out holes in walls with rodents and pestilence and
And I'm good.
I just don't want you to feel left out now.
Brother, that's not what I said or how I said it, but that's how it was heard, and I'm good.
I'm gonna listen to the recording again.
That might be helpful.
It might be helpful. It might be. I'm glad you're good though. That's good. Vinka. All right. Any questions? Since it was pointed out to me that I don't ask anybody if they have a question or want to.
I do. I have one.
Go on.
Okay. So on the that it is perfect.
Always perfect.
Always perfect. And I go with that because I tend to obviously sometimes analyze or look at it, and I'm looking for my good grade. And I'm
what was that word? Grade,
yeah. Like good student,
yeah.
doing,
yeah.
making progress.
Yeah.
And so I'm feeling that a shift. I've to where I can let that go, but it's a peaceful shift. There are no phenomenal, sensational, physical anythings. And I'm good with that, and I'm moving forward, and I'm staying with the plan and the practice, and giving it up as I go. But I just sort of was interested in the comment on that, because so often you talk about the physical sensations and the phenomenal experience.
Right. What are you experiencing in the shift?
My days are better. My mind is peaceful, quieter. I'm
What did you go through in the shift?
What did I go through? I had some purging and some, emotional crying and purging, and it would come up now and then, but truly it's on the path, moment at a time, not as worried, not as concerned. In fact,
good.
Ready for whatever comes. But my head's not blowing up. Nothing's I'm not flying through the woods or anything.
Expecting your head to blow up and fly through the woods.
something to confirm that, I don't need
Better
it.
make sure that Tina's recording if that happens. That'd be cool.
I don't feel like I need it, but it tweaks me when I hear other people having these more phenomenal experiences. I'm like, okay, that's not how it is with me. So,
well, it's individual, so I know plenty of people that go through a transformative process, and like at some point you have to have an experience, right? Jesus says that a universal experience is not only possible, but it's necessary. It's necessary. Now, if Jesus is telling me that, I'm going to take him at his word. All right, it's necessary. I have to have an experience, because the experience is not of this world. It's literally of your home. It's an experience of truth, of reality, of where you actually are. Right? Whatever seems to be going on in the physical nature of things, parallel with your transformation, with your mind training, in general terms, you should begin to witness to phenomena. Right? That should happen. that's one of the very early on witnesses to the transformation of your mind as you begin to go through shifts in your perception of the world and of yourself through the healing of the relationships you find yourself in, whether they're physical relationships or emotional ones or intimate ones with things, possessions, or whatever. So the idea that you haven't had any, or that you don't have any kind of phenomena or anything going on, it is a gentle awakening, right? And you're not going to be given more than you can handle. Like Jesus knows that if he was to show you the whole world disappear, it would probably scare the shit out of you. Right? You would probably burn the book and run off to a convent or something like that, you know. But the experiences
Or
and the
apply to-
phenomena and everything happen in parallel to your willingness to be shown what's beyond or what's outside of your current frame of reference. Right? As your mind begins to expand, as you begin to raise the vibration, it's one thing to be at peace within the world and everything else like that, but this teaching is not of the world, and your home is not of the world. And at some point, you're going to transition between finally feeling okay about meeting the world on equal terms to wanting to know more about celestial love. It's like in the Bible when Jesus says, if I talk to you about things not of the world, and you know, or if I talk to you, what is this thing, Tina? You know, like if I speak to you about things of the world and you don't understand that, how the hell are you ever going to understand when I talk to you about things that are celestial? You know, it's something, I don't know the exact wording, but so
It's close.
it's close.
Enough. I mean, it's good.
I nearly got it. I couldn't quote chapter and verse, but I nearly got it. So if you're asking me like why you haven't had any phenomena or whatever, I would say don't be in a hurry, right? Be in a hurry, or there's an urgency about your mind training, but don't be in a hurry to try and bring forth any kind of phenomena or experiences that are not of the world. Leave that to Jesus. All right.
That's really clear.
Yeah.
I lost a lot in the world, and I've been busy letting it go and getting at peace with that. And it makes sense to me that I'm still caught in my relation to the world more than I get it. Yeah. I can just be ready at the point it's ready, right? Yeah.
Give up the world and follow me.
Uh-huh.
So this is something I really like. I don't know if you've ever read the Urantia book or the Book of the Earth. There's a nice section in there where whoever it is that's channeling the information talks about Jesus as a little boy, right? And there's this very profound recognition in his village that Jesus is special. There's not quite, I mean, apart from Mary, I guess, but there's not quite a grounded, really dropped in kind of realization that he's the Messiah. But it's like Jesus kills a boy with his mind in his early youth. They have an argument, as all little boys do, and then he brings him back to life again. Right? Now that's not mentioned in the Bible, but you can imagine Jesus having the power of his father's kingdom and still learning how to use it. You know, it's like a little kid with a chemistry set, and you don't want to follow the instructions. You just kind of blow things up and have fun with it until finally you realize, well, hang on, this is actually for something. I better follow the instructions. But the nature of Jesus's village, right? And this is the same in India, right? So the wandering sadhus, same thing. The nature of life in Jesus's little village in Nazareth was that everyone was very aware of Jesus, like overly aware of Jesus and protective of him. Right? It was a time of occupation. Jesus was growing up in occupation. There was the constant threat of a foreign invading force, just doing whatever they want, raping, pillaging, doing whatever, just like running rampant through the land. crucifying everyone who didn't agree with their occupation. Everybody in Jesus's village had an idea about him, not yet knowing that he's the prophesied one, but willing to bet pretty much everything they've got that he was. Right? And they were all willing to see him make it to manhood, to begin his ministry. Which is why when Jesus said, drop your nets, come with me, it's time. Boom. Didn't have to convince them. Didn't have to say why, didn't have to say anything. They just knew. Right? They'd all grown up with it. And there was a very much a peaceful sense of purpose within the village, even though none of them had any kind of real celestial reckoning or real celestial experience other than Jesus and perhaps Mary. And Joseph had a moment. Right? So all of the villagers, all of his kin and family and friends in that village were able to process everyday village life, even in the occupation, and become very peaceful with that whole thing, but not necessarily having any kind of phenomena or anything like that, because it wasn't really required for them at that stage. And even with his own disciples, Jesus said to them towards the end, you're not going to understand what I'm teaching you until the Holy Spirit comes upon you. Right? And for that, they would have to begin their own ministries. Right? Because the Holy Spirit comes upon you specifically for the purpose of engaging in your own ministry. Not just so you can live a better life in the world, even though that's part of it. Right? The deeper secrets of spiritual truth, the deeper revelations come when you step fully into your role as a healer, fully into your role as a teacher, whatever it is that the Holy Spirit graces you with. Some people the gifts of clairvoyancy, some people the gifts of teaching, some the gifts of healing, all these sorts of things. Talks about that in the Bible as well. For me, it's been a little bit of this and a little bit of that as needed, as the situation requires. And I can't really explain that. It's like there's just a feeling of getting used. I feel like the Spirit is using me, whether that be hands-on, literal hands-on healing, or teaching like now, or whatever it looks like, you know. But I've found that when I was doing the workbook, and it's different for me because I guess it's different for me because I had the experience first. I had the revelation that the Father and Son are one first, and then was presented with the opportunity to go through the purification of my mind. When I was going through the purification of my mind in those early years with the course, I did get phenomena. Things did appear and disappear. I did see orange portals of light above me when I was walking around, and all sorts of stuff was going on. Stuff I couldn't explain. Walls would be like, wow, like in the Matrix, that movie, you know, walls and the floor and the ground would be like wobbling, and it was just bizarre, hearing voices and directions and all sorts of stuff was going on. And you'd be like, what the hell, I'm going crazy. But because of the overall experience and the mind training and everything else, I knew I wasn't going crazy, right? But I also wasn't fearful to experience whatever was required for me to experience in order to begin my ministry. Right? Now, a lot of people I meet are fearful of taking that step. Are fearful of stepping up and saying, hey, I've got something to say. For about, I don't know how long really, 3 months, 4 months, maybe a little longer. And I started it off with a 3-day period, but I used to go every, I think it was Thursday night when it was late night shopping. And on the weekends when we had no session on a Sunday, I would go into town and I would stand on the corner. I would print out these little tiny pieces of paper, and I'd get like 10 to a sheet or something like that, A4 sheet, and I'd cut them out And I'd just have simple little Course in Miracles stuff on there. And I would decorate like the one, and then I'd Xerox it and make a whole thing. So it would fold over to like a two little paper, little pamphlet, which would say, "You are whole and perfect. This world is not your home," stuff like that. And then at the bottom, produced through an awakened mind, through a Course in Miracles, something, I can't remember exactly the words, whatever. And I would stand there and I would just hand them out to everybody that went by. And I would have some incredible conversations on that street corner. Incredible. It's like Brother Dean now. Brother Dean goes to places and just meets people and has these incredible in-depth conversations. Exactly the same thing. He's doing his ministry, but it's different form to mine, but it's perfect. It's still perfect, right? But there was something in me that said, I've got to do this. I've got to give it away. And because like one of the associations of my mind in those days was Claire, and Ted used to say that I always had very John the Baptist kind of energy, you know, calling the Fred's nodding, calling the faithful from the hills down to be baptized and everything. I met this woman who made garments out of hemp, right? And I had her make me a white hemp robe. Now, if you can imagine me in a white hemp robe, long sleeves, almost full length to the feet, and just like a V-neck thing. And I would stand on the street corner. I knew I had to do it. I had to bring one robe and follow me, like literally. And I went and stood on the street corner for 3 days. I thought, I have to do this for 3 days. And I got ridiculed. I got like everything, like you can imagine. It was like all the reflections of my trepidation showed up. All of my own reflections of how stupid I felt and how out of place I felt, and everything showed up. But in the literal overcoming of my fear about bring one robe and follow me, I knew I'd made that commitment, you know. And I wore nothing underneath, and I had a woman look up my thing one day, and that was another story. I mean, everything, you know, like every kind of thing shows up. Like it literally just shows up. If the men in white coats had to come by, they probably would have took me away. But in my own mind, I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew I was simply fulfilling an act of declaring myself in a way that I had a fearful thing about doing. And then after that 3-day period, and it was only 3 days because Ted used to say, usually when you go through a thing, it takes 3 days. And I made this kind of conscious decision. I'm going to do this for 3 days. And then I would just wear my normal clothes and I would stand on the street and hand these things out. And I would have these incredible conversations to the point where, like a year or something later, this guy stopped me in the street and he goes, "You're the guy that used to stand on the corner and hand out those things." He goes, "I went and bought a copy of A Course in Miracles and I've been doing it and my whole life has changed and I'm incredibly grateful." You know, like, it's like, man, it's like you never know what anything's for. If I had to stand there for 10 years handing those things out just to help that one guy, that would have been worth it, you know. But as dumb as I felt. And the funny thing was, on the opposite corner, because it was a main intersection, like the corner I was standing on, there's 4 like corners. On the opposite side of the street in Byron Bay there was the Hare Krishna guys, and they would come every Thursday night and they would hand out the Bhagavad Gitas and their pamphlets and their everything, you know, and play their drums and chant and whatever. And we'd sort of nod to each other in acknowledgement that we're all about our Father's business. And like, we never had a conversation. I used to go up to the Haridam sometimes and have a lunch, you know, but oh man, it was fun times. But like, if there's a fear to step into your true ministry, then all of the stuff that's associated with it is going to have to wait. Right? And to step into that true ministry, to that true acceptance of the power of God within you, to allow that to become manifest in the world so that you can see it through the phenomena and the witness, then you're going to have to ask for the healing of that, because Jesus has called you to become a teacher. And what are you going to do? Hold off on that? Barry? Who else is with this man? Peter, before the cock crows 4 times, you will deny me, or 3 times, you will deny me 4 times. Something like, I'm not good with my biblical thing, but it's like, no, not me. I'm not with Jesus. No, not me. No, I'm just here to watch the crucifixion. Fuck that. Fuck that. You got to step in. You really got to activate yourself and put yourself in and step right into it and say, here I am, Lord, use me. Whatever that looks like. I want to be the witness to the truth in me, however that looks, however that's going to manifest, whatever I have to do, wherever I have to go, whoever I have to talk to, whatever I have to surrender, give up, leave behind, my house, my car, my family, my job, my money, my worldly, anything and everything, whatever it looks like. And I tell you, it can look like anything. But your salvation literally hangs in the balance. You've been called. Each and every one of you in this Zoom meeting has felt the call. That's the reason you're here. You've been called to be teachers of this, to witness to the truth of this through your own action of giving it away. Because as you give, you receive. Not the other way around. Well, let me receive first, Lord, and then I'll think about giving. Not that way around. Give first. Take the leap of faith. Step up. Step into the total uncertainty of who you are, what you're about and everything, and allow God to support you. It's always going to be a leap of faith. Always. If it's not a leap of faith, it's nothing at all. And you know it. Somewhere you know it. If it doesn't involve faith, Jesus says, unless a man lives by faith alone, he shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. By faith alone. Faith is stepping into the next moment without any preconceived ideas about what I think it's for. By the grace of God, here I am, show me, Lord. What am I to do here? Direct my feet. Use my voice. Use my hands. It's time. It's time. If not now, when? If not now, when? What are you going to do? Study A Course in Miracles for the next 20 years? Some seeds are thrown into the, what is that parable, Tina? Some seeds fall by the wayside and they don't find fertile soil.
Sand or something like that.
Some are eaten by the birds. Some get run over by the F truck and squished. It's a modern day parable.
Yep.
And some fall into fertile soil and they grow and they become like a big mustard tree, and the birds land in there and crap all over the paddock and more seeds grow.
Shit happens.
Shit happens. Yeah, birds, shit happens. Breathe. Oh, thank you. Ah.
So was that your first orgasm in 4 years?
Oh no, I have many of those. Ted just said to me, that was pretty good. I thought it was pretty good. Barry, go to London. Make it a priority. Take Angela with you. She's going to meet you there. Do what you got to do. And it's a threshold. It's a threshold activity. Right? The idea of a threshold activity is it pushes beyond the bounds of current limitation, which you may or may not even realize that you're circumscribed by. It's much the same activity as the Tibetan monks when they spend like a week making one of those beautiful sand mandalas, and as soon as they're finished, they muck it up because they have no attachment to the activity of their devotion. They're simply in the constancy of the letting go, and the moment is enough. Where's Francois? He's not here today. He's probably back on Facebook by now. Is his 2-week ban up? It's good. When you push the limits, it's like the whole thing of being given an assignment, being given a job to do, being given anything to do. In this specific context of teaching and learning, it seems to have current and relevant purpose. You may not understand it. You may not really recognize the benefit to you in it until it happens, right? But it always seems to have that current and relevant purpose, despite the fact that you're being given the assignment so that you can come to become familiar with the principle that it embodies. Right? The funny thing is that everything in life is the same. You off, Bernadette? You're going to go grab a hold of your coochie and see. My imagination went crazy when you told me about that. I'm thinking, what the hell is she doing? Like, I can imagine, but so there's another reference for you just before you go. There's another reference for you in my friends list. Find a woman called Gina Bond. Gina Bond.
Okay.
Okay. I remember her once telling me about, I'm pretty sure it was her, and if it wasn't her, she's going to like come back at you like, what the hell are you talking about? But I remember her once telling me about puckering up her anus and her vagina and everything like that, and really like holding in that energy, and then it would release through the top of her head and like just like a rocket. And I've had other experience. I don't want to go into it because we just talk about things all day, but she might be interesting to talk to you just regarding that. She might have something that'll pad out what I've said or totally negate what I've said, but I don't know. Maybe
Gina Bond, you said, right?
Maybe you don't need to. Yeah, like James Bond, but Gina Bond.
Right. I'm just gonna trust what you say, and
All right.
not gonna muck around with this.
Yeah. Yeah, don't fuck with metaphysics. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
All right, peace. So anyway, where are we at with that? Tina, what's going on?
I'm good. You know what? It just has to happen this way. That's not what I said, but that's what was heard, and that's how it's coming up right now. And it has to, because it's making me feel some sort of way. So thank you, Father. That's all I can really say.
Good.
I did not say that.
What sort of a way is it making you feel?
It's making me feel unfairly fucking treated. That's the way it works out. I feel unfairly fucking treated.
Good.
And I get to project it on all of you guys fucking again. So yeah.
Hooray. Hooray.
Hooray. Here we go. Let's go.
We love taking on board the feeling of treating you unfairly.
Yeah. It's the same thing. But anyway, yeah.
Let's do it.
No, okay. No, yeah, it doesn't really matter like how it plays out. Like what I'm feeling over here is the same package. It's the same package.
There it is. Woo, yeah.
And I just want to leave.
Don't leave. Stay there.
I want to leave. Oh.
Oh.
Push.
Oh, fuck. Oh. Oh.
Don't shy away from it. You surely got to be sick and tired of this by now, Tina.
Absolutely.
So let's get to the bottom. You ready? Let's get to the bottom. There's going to be a place where you really actually want to be miracle-minded about this.
Fuck, Dave. You don't
Go on.
fucking hear me at all. You just don't fucking
Go
hear me
on.
at all.
Go on. Yep, go on. Let's have it. I don't hear you at all.
And
else
you
you wanna
misrepresent everything I'm saying. It's like I can't.
Yep. It's interpreting everything. It's like there's really a Dave out there.
Yeah.
Right. Dave's not here, man. There's no Dave. You can project all you want. That's good, Anna. Total responsibility for the world I made. The sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept atonement for themselves. There's no such thing as communication in time and space. What somebody says, what somebody hears, impossible. Because you're the only one that gives your thoughts the meaning they have. The desire to want to reject that premise is going to play out however it plays out again and again and again and again until finally you give up. It's like I have to get to a point in my own thing where there is no world. If Jesus is telling me there is no world, I want to believe him when he says that. So I obviously need to accept it for myself in order to be able to see it in my own thinking. I'm trying to convince myself of something that has no reality whatsoever. The secret of salvation is that I'm doing it to myself. Every time you come up against the veil, every time you come up against that rock and a hard place, that paradox, that unmovable rock, it's either going to be a miracle or you're going to wander around the other side to see if you can move it in a different way. And you can't. It's bigger than you. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what you think anyone hears, I hear. None of that matters. Doesn't matter a bit. That's just the trick. That's just the play out. So you can see what you're feeling now. This is what I'm feeling. It's energy. It's bringing up all this energy that I want to label as this, that, and the other. It's bringing up all this energy that I want to turn into something and project onto the world so that I can control how I think I feel and tell myself a certain something. It's all not true. All of it. And all of that mind games is just simply designed to keep the love of God at bay. Not in my awareness, but in your own. And it's the same story for everybody. Finger on the nose. Daggers. Daggers. You know what's a really cool thing when you go to like an AA meeting or something and everyone's telling their story of how hardly done by they are and how nobody understands them and how everybody doesn't hear what they say and how they feel like a victim to the world and everything like that. And all you hear is that little violin just it's that simple. Queen Latifah. Fran, what's happening?
Just listening and thinking about my own little scenario of where I'm playing my violin. It's not you today, Dave, that I'm playing my violin over, but it is something, someone, two things. And it just pisses me off to think that I did it to myself. It just fucking pisses me off. But I'm glad. I'm glad. Fuck, I'm so glad that I can put the Holy Spirit in charge of I can ask, show me this shit. Just show it to me. And there it is. Thank you, God. Thank you, Father. And I don't have to carry it around in secret anymore. Because there is nothing to have a secret about. Have a secret I love you, Tina. I just love all you crazy sons of bitches. Oh. Oh.
The inmates are in charge of the asylum.
Oh, Jesus says I provide unending entertainment. We all do. I have no fucking idea what's going on with me right now. But it's okay. Funny you should ask.
Thank you, Father.
I'm gonna turn myself off because I'm gonna keep.
You keep laughing. Don't turn yourself off. That's the whole thing. Laughing at yourself.
Wow.
The sound of healing, laughter. Beautiful.
I keep looking over at Fran. She's muted, but she's still cracking up. I love you, Fran.
You are me. I am you. Oh fuck. All that
Yeah.
19 poster shit.
Everything covered will be uncovered. Hey, Fran. Everything hidden will be unhid. Whatever that parable is. You just keep laughing.
Oh, I will. I just hope I have the strength.
Until your sides split. You got to be willing to look at your craziness, your insanity. It's like the hidden nature of it is like so deceptive, but you kind of get worked into a corner. You start reading that book and you realize, holy shit, I do this. This is my mind he's talking about. He's not talking to someone else. He's talking to me directly. And you got to take it totally personal. Anna, you good? You want me to ask you again?
I'm good.
Vinka. Anyone else got anything that I cannot hear what you're saying?
All I want to say is Tina
Oh.
exposed me. Tina
Tina.
exposed me.
Of course, healing is
You-
always shared.
Yeah, you didn't appease. And Fran laughed. And it was perfect. So thank you.
Because I've fucking been there.
Brother Dean, just beaming. Just beaming. Kev? Kev was falling asleep.
Yeah, I just want to say, I saw you, Tina, for the first time today, and I really liked it.
Oh, sorry.
You said sorry?
She's a powerful being, a very powerful being. What was that, Dean?
Are you there? I'm just, I'm
Yeah, we're here.
technologically challenged. Can you hear me?
Go for it. We should just have
Yeah,
all the
no,
microphones unmuted. Have a free
no,
for all.
I don't know what I did, brother. No, it's just, no, it's all good, brother. What's there to say?
Hey, can you read lesson 27 for us, Dean?
I can.
I'm just going to the royal throne room. I'll be back in 2 seconds.
27. Hang on. No, okay. Above all else, I want to see. Above all else, I want to see. Recognizing that what I see reflects what I think I am. I realize that vision is my greatest need. The world I see attests to the fearful nature of the self-image I have made. If I would remember who I am, it is essential I let this image of myself go. As it is replaced by truth, vision will surely be given me. And with this vision, I will look upon the world and upon myself with charity and love. These are. What a crazy dream, eh? Yeah. I'm really grateful for all these guys. I'm grateful. I was just when you were talking before, Tammy, I was listening to what you said, and it's been a couple of years since I've been asleep, but the Holy Spirit just comes and goes click and turns me off, and I go unconscious from that same pressing or a similar experience, or well, it's only anyway. I used to think, oh, I'm never going to go to sleep. And then the Holy Spirit will just go, and I go, give me a rest, the Holy Spirit. And he goes, no, you can take some more. And then it'll just be a moment. I'll just go click and I'm unconscious. And then I get woken up X amount of hours later and it goes on again. And I get to look at my training and my thoughts get adjusted and your mind, because it's expansion of your mind. Your mind just expands more and more and more, and then you start to remember sentences. Oh, my thoughts are images I have made up, and I brought this world with me, and yeah, and then my awarenesses are bestowed upon me. I have these really cool awarenesses, and I just itching to share them with somebody, and I just I get grumpy at Jesus and say, give me something to freaking do, and then I just want it so much, I just want this fucking world to, Jesus says we're capable of making another world. I look around at my brothers and the insanity of this world. It's just a basket case, and just to know that there's a peace of mind out there somewhere in the dream that's done it, that's brought this world to an end, because it's already over and we're just in a review. I don't know, fucking, that'd be just the, to have that goal, just to have that goal. Jesus says you can do this and bring about a new world. There's no need for this shit to go on any longer. One mind, that's all it takes. So I'm just so grateful that, in this moment, in this dream, that you're here with me, and you're obviously here with me because you can see the insanity in the world, and that's really cool. So I'm just grateful, I'm going out there and doing what I can. It just feels like fucking nothing. It feels like fucking nothing. And then I think, oh, there's no such thing as a neutral thought. And then I think, oh, my thoughts are images I've made up. So I'm looking around in this world and I'm thinking, I want a difference. I want to see this differently. I want to fucking just blaze into the mind and just fucking bring about a difference. Yeah. It's just a dream, We're all in it together. It's just a constant dream. Time doesn't go along. It's just it falls down like rain, and it's instantly gone. And the wind's in a different piece of the dream. So when you understand this, the divine science of it, of course it's possible. What one person, one piece of mind that wants to save the world can. A new beginning. There's only new beginnings, There's no endings. Just a new something, Whatever that alternative is. I'm sure God has an idea. It's got to be way better than this, than what we appear to be in at the moment. Anyway, thank you.
I mean, can't you feel right now just this huge release on this along with all of us right now?
Yeah.
All of us, not one of us appears to be expressing, but it's the whole. It's all for us, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Liberation comes from the world in simply accepting it exactly as it is. This is the place of death. All things come to die. Why would you expect to find anything different here? It's like, oh, I get it. I came here to die. That's what I'm seeing around me, death through my body's eyes. That's never going to change. But I can learn to see with the vision of Christ that looks beyond the body and sees the perfection of my brother, knowing that this is all atoned for already in the resurrection of Christ. And in that, party time, celebrate, put the music on, let's have fun. East Coast, West Coast, all of that stuff.
As we laugh and cry at the same time.
Yeah, whatever it looks like. I mean, you get angry, you get upset, you get happy, you get joyous, you get all of this shit. That's what transformation is. If it's not that, you're not doing it. The worst thing on the planet is if you just like this flat line, like where nothing seems to upset you and tip out all the apples out of your cart. Let the fucking apples tip out. What the hell? Who the hell likes apples anyway? I prefer mangoes. And it's like the idea of seeing a better world. It's like, I want to see this differently. It's not seeing a better world through the body's eyes. It's seeing a better world through an internal recognition, firstly, that what I think I'm seeing out there isn't true. And secondly, through realizing that through recourse to the Holy Spirit, I can be shown a vision of what actually is true. I can be shown the truth of my brother through my willingness to look beyond what the body's eyes see and to be shown the truth. My brother is not a body. The body's always going to represent the antagonist and the catalyst of my own human condition. Always. That's never going to change. Ted used to say, you're going to fucking hate my guts before you love me, before you know what love is. You're going to hate me before you love me, because you're going to have to go right to the bottom of your own emotional state, project that onto me. It's like when Tina said, like, I'm projecting it onto all of you guys. She knows full well that's what she's doing. Everybody knows full well that's what they're doing. That is the nature of ego mind. Whether you want to admit it to yourself or not doesn't matter. That's still what's happening. I'm projecting my thoughts out there onto a world, making up a world that I think suits me or doesn't suit me and trying to change it according to my ideas of who I think I am and what I'm entitled to, and getting the results of that, which becomes very unsatisfying because it all ends in death. And then when Jesus comes along and says, well, look, this is what you're doing, you know that's what you're doing, and it makes you pissed off even more. I know I'm doing that, Jesus. And the whole teaching is, well, don't do that. Just don't do that. Let something else happen other than that. Right? Leave that space. Leave that little moment for the Holy Spirit to enter in and for something else to occur. The world's never going to understand you. Your brothers are never going to understand you. Never going to hear you truly, never going to appreciate you truly, never going to accept you for who you are truly, as seen through the body's eyes. Because the body's eyes only ever seek for witnesses to death. And that's a bitter pill to swallow, but it's also a catalyst for release. It's like, oh, cool. I get that now. That doesn't mean that you're negated from having to undergo the collapse of that thought system. It's like Jesus says, there's going to be a moment of terror associated with that. There's going to be a moment where you have to look at that anger, where you have to look at all that shit coming up, and it's fucking horrible. But you do it in grace. And before you know it, it's done. You start with little relationships. You start with little things you think you can manage, and it's quite gentle, and it proceeds along in a gentle pace. And then you start to take on bigger chunks of the pie. And you start to look at things from a more celestial perspective. It's like, holy shit, I'm in denial of God. I'm not just projecting onto my brother. I'm not just projecting out there onto the scenario at work, at home, my family, my friends, all my expectations and my hopes and my dreams. I'm not just doing that. I'm actually living in denial of God and using that as a cover story to keep and validate that sense of separation, to perpetuate it. It's like all of a sudden you got to realize it for yourself. It's like, oh, damn, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't know how to not do that, because that's what I've trained myself to do. I need a miracle. I need a miracle. And prayer is the medium of miracles. Don't replace one form of illusion with another. Let it be miraculous. Learn to become miracle-minded.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. And now we say amen. Anyone else got anything? I'm going to go have some breakfast. My strawberries were slightly unsatisfying. They're reflecting death. My genetically modified strawberries, or what are they called? The thing? Oh, Kevin, Sparkly book, page 702.
I haven't got the sparkly book with me.
Oh, who's got the sparkly book there? Anyone?
Me. Oh, I haven't got the sparkly.
Tina's got it. Tina, page 702, the first paragraph, please, and we'll end on that. Gannon, listen.
The simplicity of salvation. How simple is salvation? How simple is salvation? All it says is what was never true is not true now and never will be. The impossible has not occurred and can have no effects, and that is all. Can this be hard to learn by anyone who wants it to be true? Only unwillingness to learn it could make such an easy lesson difficult. How hard is it to see that what is false cannot be true, and what is true cannot be false? You can no longer say that you perceive no differences in false and true. You have been told exactly how to tell one from the other and just what to do if you become confused. Why then do you persist in learning not such simple things?
Good. Thank you, Father.